I never imagined my 6-year-old son's instincts would unravel a dark family secret, but looking back, all the signs were there. My life changed the day Lucas refused to eat at his grandmother's house. Not just politely declined, he pushed his plate away with such force that the china rattled against the mahogany dining table, his small face twisted in distress. "I don't want it," he whispered, eyes fixed on the steaming bowl of homemade chicken soup in front of him. The same recipe my mother-in-law, Margaret, claimed had been passed down through generations of her family. "Lucas," I scolded automatically, then caught myself. This wasn't like him. My son was usually the most well-mannered kindergartner in his class, always saying please and thank you, never making scenes. But lately, every time we visited his grandmother's house, he became a different child. Withdrawn, anxious, refusing to eat anything she prepared. Margaret's face darkened as she stood at the head of the table, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the polished wood. "I spent 3 hours making this soup especially for you," she said, her voice dripping with the particular kind of sweetness that always set my teeth on edge. "Just like I used to make for your cousins." The mention of his cousins made Lucas shrink further into his chair. I hadn't seen my nieces and nephews at these weekly family dinners for months now. Their parents always had excuses: sports practice, homework, doctor's appointments. It struck me as odd, considering how they used to never miss a Sunday at Grandma's house. "He's just going through a picky phase," I said quickly, trying to diffuse the tension. "I can make him a sandwich when we get home." "Nonsense." Margaret's voice hardened. "In my day, children ate what they were given, or they went hungry. No one coddled us with special meals." She moved behind Lucas's chair, her hands gripping his shoulders. "Just one spoonful, dear, for Grandma." Lucas started trembling. Actually trembling. Something cold settled in my stomach as I watched my normally happy, confident child seem to collapse in on himself. "Mom, please," my husband David interrupted from across the table. "If he doesn't want to eat, don't force him." Margaret's head snapped toward her son. "I raised you better than this, David. Are you going to let your child disrespect me in my own home?" I'd heard variations of this guilt trip countless times over the 7 years I'd been married to David. Usually I bit my tongue, kept the peace. But something about Lucas's fear, so visceral and raw, sparked a protective fury in me. "He said no," I stated firmly, standing up. "And we're going to respect that." "This is ridiculous." Margaret's composure cracked. She snatched up the soup spoon, her knuckles white around the silver handle. "Just eat it, you ungrateful child." Lucas burst into tears. Before I could react, he knocked the bowl away from him. Hot soup splashed across the pristine tablecloth, staining the white fabric an accusatory yellow. The silence that followed was deafening. "Get out," Margaret whispered, her face contorted with rage. "Get out of my house." I grabbed Lucas's hand and practically ran for the door, David close behind us. As we drove home in tense silence, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror at my son. He had stopped crying but sat unnaturally still, staring out the window. "Lucas, honey," I said gently, "can you tell me why you didn't want to eat Grandma's soup?" He shook his head, pulling his knees up to his chest. "Did it taste bad?" David asked, trying to keep his tone light. "You can tell us." "I saw her," Lucas whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. "In the kitchen, when she was making it." "Saw her do what, sweetheart?" Lucas pressed his face against the window. "Can't tell. She said if I tell, bad things will happen." David and I exchanged alarmed looks. My mind raced back through recent months, cataloging changes. How Lucas had gone from loving his grandmother's cooking to refusing to touch it. How the other grandchildren had slowly stopped coming to family dinners. How Margaret had become increasingly insistent about preparing all the food herself, refusing any offers of help in the kitchen. That night, after Lucas was finally asleep, I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed, "Henderson family food poisoning." Nothing relevant. I tried again. Margaret Henderson cooking complaints. A news article from 3 years ago caught my eye. A local food safety violation at a charity bake sale. The organizer had been taken to the hospital. The name listed made my blood run cold. Margaret Henderson. I dug deeper. Social media posts from relatives I'd never met, hinting at mysterious illnesses after family gatherings. A pattern emerged, stretching back years before I'd even met David. Children getting sick after visits to Grandma's house. Adults developing mysterious symptoms. All carefully explained away, dismissed as stomach bugs or food allergies. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My hands shook as I read it. "This is Emma, your niece. I saw you searching about Grandma online. We need to talk. There's so much you don't know." I stared at the message for a long time, my mind racing back to all the uneaten meals, all the excuses, all the signs I'd somehow missed. But my son hadn't missed them. He'd known, somehow, that something was very wrong with Grandma's cooking. And now I was finally going to find out what. I met Emma at a small cafe 2 towns over, far from Margaret's watchful eye. My niece was 17 now, but the way she hunched over her untouched coffee reminded me of how Lucas had curled into himself at his grandmother's table. "I should have said something sooner," Emma began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But Grandma, she has ways of making sure people stay quiet." "What happened, Emma?" I asked, leaning forward. "Why did you and your siblings stop visiting?" Emma's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. "Look at these," she said, sliding it across the table. "I've been documenting everything for the past year." I scrolled through dozens of photos. Kitchen cabinets filled with unmarked bottles, strange powders hidden behind innocent-looking spice jars, handwritten recipes with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. But what made my stomach turn were the medical records, screenshots of hospital visits, test results showing elevated levels of substances I'd never heard of. "It started small," Emma explained, watching my face carefully. "We get sick after Sunday dinners. Nothing major at first, stomach aches, headaches, mild fevers. Grandma always had an explanation. Food allergies, sensitive stomachs, kids being dramatic." She took a shaky breath. "Then my brother Jake got really sick. 3 days in the hospital. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. That's when I started paying attention, really paying attention, to what Grandma was doing in the kitchen." "What was she doing?" I whispered, though part of me didn't want to know. "Experimenting," Emma said bitterly. "She has this obsession with natural remedies and supplements. But not the normal kind. She orders stuff from these sketchy websites, mixes them into food, says she's building our immunity or cleansing our systems." My mind flashed to Lucas's words. I saw her in the kitchen. "The worst part?" Emma continued, "she keeps detailed records, like she's conducting some kind of twisted science experiment on her own family. I found her journals hidden in the basement." I felt sick. "Have you told your parents?" Emma's laugh was hollow. "Mom doesn't want to believe it. Dad, your husband's brother, he tried to confront Grandma once after Jake got sick. The next day, he got a call from his boss. Someone had sent anonymous emails about misconduct at work. False accusations, but enough to scare him." "Blackmail," I breathed. Emma nodded. "Grandma knows things about everyone in the family, keeps files, uses them to make sure nobody talks." My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Mom's coming over. Says she needs to talk about Lucas." Emma's face went pale when I showed her the message. "Don't let her in," she warned. "And whatever you do, don't let her near your kitchen." I drove home in a daze, Emma's words echoing in my mind. When I pulled into our driveway, Margaret's silver Mercedes was already there. She stood on our porch, holding what looked like a peace offering, a container of her famous chicken soup. David answered the door before I could stop him. Margaret swept past him into our house, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors. "I've been thinking about yesterday," she announced, heading straight for our kitchen. "I may have overreacted, but you know I only want what's best for my grandchildren." She placed the container on our counter, then began opening cabinets, presumably looking for bowls. My skin crawled as I watched her move through my kitchen with such familiarity. "Actually," I said, finding my voice, "we were just heading out. Doctor's appointment for Lucas." Margaret's hand stilled on a cabinet door. "On a Sunday." "Yes," I said firmly, "and we're running late." "Well, at least let me put this soup in your fridge for later." She reached for the handle. "No." The force of my own voice surprised me. We won't be eating that." Margaret turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. "And why is that, dear?" "Because I know what you've been doing," I said, my heart pounding. "I know about Jake's hospitalization, about the unmarked bottles, the journals. All pretense of warmth vanished from Margaret's face. Emma, she hissed. That ungrateful little snitch. I suppose she showed you her ridiculous evidence. Get out of my house, I demanded, pulling out my phone. Before I call the police. Margaret's laugh sent chills down my spine. And tell them what? That your mother-in-law makes health tonics? That she cares enough about her family to boost their immunity naturally? Her voice hardened. Who do you think they'll believe? The respected grandmother who volunteers at church, or the paranoid daughter-in-law who's clearly been reading too many conspiracy theories? They'll believe the lab results. David's voice came from behind us. I hadn't even heard him come in. He held up his phone, displaying photos of the same medical records Emma had shown me, and the dozens of witnesses. All the children you've made sick over the years. For the first time, I saw real fear flicker across Margaret's face. David, she breathed. You can't possibly think I would hurt my own family. But you did, Mom, he said quietly. And it stops now. Margaret's composure cracked. I was helping, she shrieked, making you all stronger. You're too weak, too soft, all of you. Just like your father was. She lunged for the container of soup on the counter. David moved faster, grabbing it before she could reach it. In the struggle, some of the liquid splashed onto Margaret's hand. The reaction was immediate. Angry red blisters began forming on her skin. As Margaret stared in horror at her own creation's effects, I called 911. Within minutes, our kitchen was filled with police officers and paramedics. They led Margaret out in handcuffs, her perfectly manicured hands now red and swollen, her mascara running down her cheeks. This isn't over, she called back to us. You'll see. I was protecting this family. As the police car drove away, I held David close, both of us shaking. But amid the chaos and horror, one thought kept repeating in my mind. My 6-year-old son had known. Somehow, he had seen the truth that we adults had missed for so long. And his refusal to eat at Grandma's house had finally exposed a darkness that had poisoned our family for years. The weeks following Margaret's arrest felt like waking up from a long nightmare. The investigation revealed horrors beyond what any of us had imagined. Police found dozens of journals in her basement, detailing years of systematic experimentation on family members. She'd been ordering unregulated supplements from the dark web, testing different combinations in her recipes, meticulously recording the effects on her unwitting victims. The story made national headlines. Grandmother arrested for poisoning family through natural remedies. Local news interviewed former neighbors who spoke about children getting mysteriously ill after Margaret's famous bake sales. A former church member recalled how her entire choir had been hospitalized after Margaret's special backslash cookies. But the real healing began when the family finally started talking. We gathered at my house one Sunday, not for dinner, but for truth. Jake, now recovered, shared his hospital story. Cousins spoke about years of unexplained illnesses. Aunts and uncles admitted to ignoring signs, fearing Margaret's retaliation. Emma brought her documentation, which proved crucial for the prosecution. I kept having these dreams, Lucas said quietly during the gathering, sitting in my lap. About Grandma's kitchen. The bottles made funny sounds at night, like they were whispering bad things. David squeezed our son's shoulder. Why didn't you tell us sooner, buddy? Lucas looked down at his hands. Grandma said if I told, she'd make you sick instead of me. She said that's what happened to Grandpa. The room fell silent. David's father had died 10 years ago from what everyone believed was a heart condition. Now we all exchanged haunted looks, wondering just how long Margaret's experiments had really been going on. The prosecutor called it a systematic campaign of abuse. Margaret's defense claimed mental illness, but the journals showed too much careful planning, too much deliberate manipulation. In the end, she pleaded guilty to multiple counts of aggravated assault and child endangerment. At the sentencing, Margaret stood in her orange jumpsuit, all traces of her former elegance gone. She turned to face the family members filling the courtroom benches. I was making you stronger, she insisted, her voice cracking. Every generation gets weaker, more susceptible. I was building your immunity, preparing you for. The judge cut her off. 20 years in prison, no possibility of early parole. As they led her away, she called out one last time, David, tell Lucas Grandma still loves him. Tell him. He doesn't need to hear any more from you, I said firmly, holding my son close. Outside the courthouse, Emma approached Lucas with a small gift bag. "This is for you, cousin," she said, kneeling to his level. "Because you were braver than all of us grown-ups." Inside was a child's cooking set, plastic utensils, a tiny apron, and a real cookbook for kids. Lucas's eyes lit up. "Maybe," Emma suggested, "we can start a new family tradition. Cooking together, the right way. No secrets, no hidden ingredients. Just love and real food." That weekend, our kitchen filled with laughter as Lucas donned his new apron, helping Emma make chocolate chip cookies. Other family members dropped by, each bringing a dish to share. David's brother brought his famous grilled vegetables. Jake showed up with pizza dough he'd learned to make in therapy. Even my sister-in-law's Pinterest fail cupcakes were celebrated. "Taste this, Mom," Lucas called excitedly, holding up a warm cookie. I hesitated for just a moment, an instinct born from months of fear, but Lucas's proud smile washed away any doubt. The cookie was perfect, simple, sweet, and made with nothing but proper ingredients and a child's love. Later that night, as I tucked Lucas into bed, he asked, "Is Grandma going to be mad that we're having fun without her?" "No, honey," I said, smoothing his hair. "Grandma, she's going to be away for a very long time. And it's okay to be happy and safe with the people who truly love us." He nodded thoughtfully. "Can we invite my other cousins for cookies next time?" Of course, I smiled. Our kitchen is always open to family. As I turned off his light, I realized something profound. In trying to strengthen our family through her twisted experiments, Margaret had actually given us a different kind of strength. The strength to speak up, to protect each other, to trust our instincts. Even when those instincts came from a 6-year-old boy who simply knew something wasn't right about Grandma's cooking. Our family gatherings are different now. We cook together, share recipes openly, laugh about kitchen disasters. Every ingredient is labeled, every process transparent, and if someone doesn't want to eat something, we respect that without question. Sometimes the deepest family bonds are forged not by blind acceptance of toxic traditions, but by the courage to break them. My son's refusal to eat at his grandmother's house didn't just save him. It saved our entire family from a legacy of secrets and pain. And that's a lesson worth passing down through generations.